Hi Michael, we have the first of our video questions for you, and it is a fair one in my opinion. She says that you call for free children's public programs for children and youth, but how can we possibly afford this?
Well, it's a fair question, but I would like to turn the question around, because I think what you have to say is, how can we not afford to do it? For 25 years now, for an entire generation, we have been told by certain political movements that we cannot afford the things that we need as a civilization to produce a constructive future. I mean, the fact is that we have to have programs for children and youth for the simple reason that otherwise we will not develop the citizens that we need, the citizens that the city needs, the citizens that the country needs for the future. Somehow we've gotten into this delusion that you can sort of leave an entire generation of people out and that they will subsidize tax cuts for the present generation and that there will be no consequence for this. Well, there is a consequence for it. And the consequence is that now we have city programs that charge fees, despite the fact that they are already paid for by the taxpayers for youth and children to participate in them. So the question is that fair? Well, it may seem fair to those who can afford it, but it doesn't seem fair to me.
Is there a model already that exists?
Well, there are some models. I mean, a classic model is what happened in Uruguay, a country that is far more challenged economically than North America, and yet they provided free laptops for every public school child in the entire country. And they did so at the public expense. And they did so because they made choices. They made choices that we have refused to make. They put children and youth first. We have not done that.
So let me get this straight. You're saying we should subsidize all these programs? Don't we pay high enough taxes?
Well, the question is, are our tax dollars being put in the right place, and are we advocating for the right kind of tax dollars? I mean, the fact is that the city already pays for things that it should not. But because we have a whole section of city councillors who want to be Liberal and Tory cabinet ministers, they are absolutely unwilling to advocate on behalf of the city. They do not make the obvious, strident case that needs to be made that the city should not be paying for many of the programs that were downloaded to it by the Harris Tories. The fact remains, all of Rob Ford's bullshit aside, and I'll say it in those words, that if those downloads that were created to make a false surplus for the Harris government were eliminated, the city would be much better off. And we need people who will stand up to the provincial government, who will do something about that. And going back to youth programs, and because I think that is where this came from, that's where this question essentially began. When you're going to talk about youth, you have to ask, are you talking about your own children only? And if you are talking about your own children only, do your own children live in a vacuum? Because you can create a fantasy in which you go from your point A to your point B, and somehow nothing exists in between. But that's not the real world. The real world is one in which your children are going to have to exist with everybody else's children. And if their children are left behind, the consequences will also be passed on to your kids. So while you think that because other people are cut out of programs, and because other people can't afford them, and you can, somehow it's okay for you, well, then that's not true. Because your children will pay the price, socially, and economically through the disorder that will come if we have a civilization that does not take care of its kids. You cannot say to people, you cannot tell an entire generation that they are being left out of development, education, all of these programs that are meant for you